It was the silence that did it for me. You know the kind, the one that speaks louder than words. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't an argument. It was the kind of silence that makes your heart race, your stomach twist, and your mind spiral into a million different places. And the worst part? I didn't even know what had triggered it. Her name was Lydia, and she did something I never thought she would do. She blocked me. But it wasn't the blocking that threw me. It was the fact that I hadn't seen it coming. Lydia was never the type to shy away from confrontation. She didn't run from problems, and she didn't avoid them. But somehow, in the blink of an eye, she pulled the rug out from under me, and I was left standing there, completely blindsided. It started on the Friday night. She left for her weekend getaway with her friends. She'd been talking about it for weeks. Her girls' trip, just like old times, where they'd catch up and drink wine, share memories, and laugh. A few days before she left, we had one of those peaceful dinners, the kind where everything feels calm, easy. We didn't talk much about the trip, but she seemed excited, and I was happy for her. We were in a good place, or at least I thought we were. But I'll admit, there was something in the air that night. Something I couldn't quite place. She was distracted. Not in a bad way, just different. I didn't think much of it. She'd been working a lot recently, and I figured she just needed the break. The next day, I kissed her goodbye as she left for the airport. "Have fun, babe. Don't forget to call me when you can," I said, trying to sound cheerful. She waved with a smile, got into the taxi, and was gone. The first few hours were normal. I did my usual routine, worked, checked emails, and went about the day. But as the evening approached, I started to notice something strange. She hadn't texted me yet. Nothing. No, I made it safely message. No, hey, I miss you. I tried calling her once. No answer. I figured she was just busy, maybe settling in with her friends. But as the hours passed, that familiar unease started to creep in. It was the kind of feeling that only comes when you're not sure if you should trust your instincts. You know the one. That nagging sense in your gut that tells you something's off, even if you can't quite explain why. I tried calling again. Voicemail. I sent a quick text. Hope everything's going well. Miss you. Nothing. At this point, my anxiety was starting to get the best of me. I know. I'm not the type to overreact, but there was something about the lack of communication that felt wrong. We had been together for 3 years, and in all that time, there had never been a moment like this. She always kept in touch, even when she was out with friends. It was just who she was. After a couple of hours, I decided to reach out to her best friend, Kate. She was in the same group, and I figured she'd know what was going on. Maybe Lydia had just been busy or distracted. I shot Kate a text, keeping it light. "Hey, just checking in. Haven't heard from Lydia. Is she okay?" The reply came quickly, but something about it didn't sit right. "She's fine, just busy with the girls. You know how she is. She'll text when she gets a chance." I read the message several times. It was polite, reassuring even, but it lacked the usual warmth Kate would normally have. There was no, "Don't worry, everything's fine." No personal touch. Just a simple, almost robotic reply. My suspicion grew. I sent another text to Kate, this time more direct. "Has she said anything? Lydia's been acting a little strange lately. Any idea what's going on?" Kate took longer to respond this time. When her message finally popped up, it wasn't comforting at all. "Nathan, I don't know. She's been kind of off lately. Maybe just give her space. She's probably stressed." It was the word space that threw me. Something in the way she said it felt off. Too neutral. Too calculated. At that point, I was pacing around the apartment, my mind racing. Why would she need space? Why hadn't she reached out? This was not Lydia. This was not the woman I knew. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid, insecure husband, but something was telling me to dig deeper. I called Kate again, and this time, I wasn't asking for updates or well wishes. I needed answers. "I'm not trying to make this weird, Kate, but I need to know what's really going on with Lydia. Why is she acting like this? Has she said anything to you? Anything at all?" There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, as if she was trying to choose her words carefully. Then, finally, she spoke. "Look, Nathan, I don't want to say too much, but Lydia has been distant lately. She's been talking about needing a break from everything. From you, from work, from everything. Maybe she just needs some time to figure things out." The words hit me harder than I expected. Distant? Talking about needing a break? From me? My heart sank. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't the woman who promised to be there, to communicate, to work through everything together. I didn't know what to think. I had to know more, so I decided to do something I wasn't proud of. Something that, looking back, I should have never done. I texted Kate a simple message. Show Lydia a picture. Just one picture. A harmless one. It's from that night I went out with my colleagues. The one from last month. Just show it to her. I didn't expect what came next. A minute later, my phone buzzed. 30 missed calls. From Lydia. I froze. Something had changed. Something big. I didn't know how long I stood there, staring at my phone, before I realized what had just happened. 30 missed calls. 30. The kind of number that made my hands tremble, my mind race, and my heart slam against my chest. It was so out of character for Lydia to act like this, so completely alien to the woman I thought I knew. What had changed? Why was she calling me now, after I'd been trying to get in touch with her all night, only to be ignored? I didn't want to overthink it. My first instinct was to call her back. I was about to, but then I stopped. What if I was reading this all wrong? What if she was just overreacting to something harmless? Maybe she was upset about the picture I had asked Kate to show her. It didn't make sense, but then again, none of this made sense anymore. I took a deep breath and decided to call her back, but something held me back again. It was like a little voice in my head telling me not to rush it. I wasn't sure if I was scared of what she might say or if I just didn't want to face the truth. I waited, staring at the screen, my mind spinning with 1,000 different possibilities. The silence that followed was deafening. Instead of calling back immediately, I decided to text her first. I felt like maybe, just maybe, texting her would soften the situation. I didn't want to sound desperate. I wanted to sound calm, collected. I was still hoping this was just some kind of misunderstanding. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I typed. Lydia, what's going on? I've been trying to reach you all night. Why didn't you pick up? The words sat there, a little too cold for my liking, but I pressed send anyway. I needed to know what was going on, but I had no idea if I was ready for the truth. Minutes passed. 5, maybe 10. No response. I wasn't sure how much longer I could take the waiting. That's when I decided to go through the worst-case scenarios in my head. I imagined every possibility. What if Lydia had been seeing someone else? What if all those times she'd been too busy with work or her friends were just code for something deeper, something she wasn't telling me? It wasn't like me to jump to conclusions. But when you're left in the dark, sometimes your mind wanders to places you don't want it to. I thought about the time she'd been acting distant a few weeks ago. The late nights at work, the girls' night, outings that never seemed to end at a reasonable hour. I brushed it off as nothing back then, but now? Now, everything was a red flag. I needed to know. I sent another text. I'm really worried, Lydia. I just want to understand what's going on. The response finally came, but it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't even close. The screen flashed with a single notification from Lydia. I need space. I need to think. Please stop contacting me for a while. The words hit like a slap to the face. Space. Think. I had no idea how to respond. I thought I was reading it wrong, but the more I stared at the message, the more I realized she wasn't playing games. She meant it. I sat there, staring at the screen, waiting for some kind of explanation, something that would make it all make sense. But nothing came. No follow-up text. No, I'll explain everything later. Or, let's talk when I get back. Just the cold, harsh finality of her words. Please stop contacting me for a while. I felt like I was in a nightmare, unable to wake up. It was like she'd just thrown me away, as if everything we had built together didn't matter. It was all so sudden, so sharp. I tried calling again, my thumb hitting the screen almost automatically, but once again, it went straight to voicemail. The next few hours were a blur. I tried to distract myself, but nothing worked. I watched TV, tried to read, even cooked myself some dinner. But nothing helped. The silence between us was deafening, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something catastrophic had just happened. My heart was pounding with questions I couldn't answer. What had Lydia been hiding? Why didn't she want to talk to me? And most importantly, what did this sudden need for space really mean? Finally, I did what any desperate person would do. I went to Kate's place. I had to know more. Something in me just wouldn't let go. I couldn't keep spinning in circles by myself anymore. I needed to find out what had really been going on. When I arrived at Kate's apartment, she answered the door almost immediately, her face a mixture of surprise and unease. I could tell she was nervous, but she let me in without a word. I didn't waste any time. Kate. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Tell me the truth. What's going on with Lydia? Is there someone else? Kate's face paled slightly, and she hesitated, glancing down at the floor. Nathan, I don't know what to say. I felt a chill run down my spine. Her hesitation spoke volumes, and I could feel my pulse quicken. I grabbed her arm gently, trying not to sound frantic. You have to tell me. I deserve to know. Kate sighed deeply and sat down on the couch. Lydia, she's been acting different. She's been pushing everyone away lately. And, well, she didn't tell me everything, but I think she's been talking to someone else. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I was speechless for a moment. It was like the ground had shifted beneath me, and I was falling, unable to catch myself. Someone else? I repeated, barely able to get the words out. Who? Kate looked away, not wanting to meet my eyes. I don't know for sure, but I think she's been seeing someone she met at work. The world around me seemed to slow down. My heart was hammering in my chest as I tried to process the information. Lydia, the woman I thought I knew so well, had been keeping secrets from me. Deep, dark secrets. And that was just the beginning. I sat there in the dimly lit living room, unable to process the words Kate had just said. The room felt like it was closing in on me, the walls pressing in, the air too thick to breathe. Lydia, the woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew, was seeing someone else? I wanted to yell, to demand more answers, but all I could do was sit there, numb. The ground beneath me felt unsteady, like I might collapse at any moment. My head was spinning with questions that couldn't be answered. Are you sure? I finally managed to choke out. Are you sure about this? Kate didn't immediately answer. She shifted uncomfortably on the couch, looking down at her hands. I'm not 100% sure, Nathan. But Lydia's been acting distant for weeks now. She's been lying about a lot of things. At first, I thought it was just stress, But then I started noticing things that didn't add up. She's been getting messages late at night, sneaking around. And when I asked her about it, she just brushed me off. I could feel my chest tighten as I absorbed every word. The more I heard, the less I recognized the woman I had spent years with. The Lydia I knew wouldn't lie, wouldn't sneak around. But here I was, hearing that everything had been falling apart while I was obliviously stuck in my own world. She met him at work? I asked, the words coming out in a whisper, as if I was afraid of hearing them aloud. Kate nodded. Yeah, she said he was a new client, but I don't know. I never liked the way she'd talk about him. It felt like more than just work stuff. It was personal. I could barely breathe. I felt like I was suffocating in my own confusion. My mind raced back to all the times Lydia had seemed off. Late nights at work, unexplained absences, her constant need for space. The signs had been there all along, and I had been too blind to see them. What am I supposed to do with this, Kate? I asked, my voice shaking. How could she do this to me? Kate shifted uncomfortably, her gaze now focused on the floor. I don't know, but I think you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to confront her. I felt a surge of anger rush through me. I had always trusted Lydia. I had always been there for her, even when things got tough. And now, here I was, learning that the woman I had shared my life with had been lying to me, hiding things from me. I had been living in a fantasy, thinking that everything was fine, while she was out there, betraying me. I need to find out who he is, I said, my voice steely with determination. I need to know who this guy is, Kate. I can't just sit here and wonder. Kate's expression softened. I don't know if you should do that, Nathan. It might make things worse. But I wasn't listening anymore. The need for answers had consumed me. I had to know everything. I had to know who had stolen my wife's heart, who had driven her to act the way she was. I wasn't going to just sit around and wait for Lydia to tell me the truth. If she wasn't going to come clean, I was going to make her. I'll find out myself, I said, standing up. I'm not going to wait for her to tell me. I'll figure it out. I left Kate's apartment in a daze, my mind running at full speed. How had I let it get to this point? How had I not seen the signs before? I went home, not knowing what I was going to do next. I knew Lydia would be back soon, and I had no idea what kind of confrontation awaited me. My head was still spinning, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just a simple misunderstanding. Something had shifted between us, and I wasn't sure I could ever go back to the way things were. That night, I stayed up late, pacing around the apartment, thinking about the next steps. I couldn't just let it go. I couldn't just pretend that everything was fine anymore. This wasn't just about trust anymore. This was about finding out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Then, around 2 a.m., I received a text from Lydia. It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't an apology or even an explanation. It was a simple sentence. "We need to talk when I get back." My heart raced as I read it over and over. I didn't know if I was ready for that conversation, but I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. Lydia was coming back tomorrow, and I was going to get the answers I so desperately needed. I put my phone down and sat on the couch, staring at the empty space beside me. I thought about everything. Our life, our marriage, the plans we had made. It all felt so fragile now. Was it too late to fix things? Could I ever look at her the same way again? The answers were nowhere in sight, and the waiting was unbearable. The next day, Lydia came back early in the afternoon. She walked through the door, her eyes immediately searching for me. I stood up from the couch, my heart hammering in my chest. We both stood there, frozen for a moment, not knowing how to begin. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, she spoke. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice quiet, almost too soft. "I know you've been trying to reach me." I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Lydia," I said, my voice firm but controlled, "we need to talk about what's been happening. You owe me that." Her face fell, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. "Nathan, I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did." I waited, breathless, as she slowly sat down across from me. The truth was finally coming. But was it the truth I was ready to hear? Lydia sat across from me, her eyes avoiding mine. She had always been so confident, so assured, and yet now, sitting there in front of me, she looked small, almost fragile. It was like the air between us had shifted completely, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the woman I had spent years with. The woman who had promised to be my partner, my equal, through everything. I couldn't wait any longer. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. I could feel my pulse racing, my hands clammy, but I had to know. I needed to know the truth, no matter how badly it would hurt. Lydia flinched at the question, her face flushing with what I could only assume was embarrassment or shame. But I didn't care. Not anymore. The silent treatment had gone on long enough. She had lied to me, hidden things from me, and I needed to confront it head on. I don't know how to explain it, Nathan," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did." I leaned forward, trying to control the anger and confusion that was building up inside me. "Stop with the excuses, Lydia. Who is he?" She took a deep breath, as if bracing herself for the impact of what she was about to say. "His name is Michael. He's a client at work. He started coming in for meetings, and at first, it was just business. But after a while, I don't know. We started talking more. He's charming, Nathan. He made me feel special. He understood me in ways you didn't." The words felt like a punch in the gut. I wanted to scream, to shout at her for betraying me, but I stayed silent, letting her finish. I had to hear it all, even if it felt like I was drowning in her confession. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "But the more we talked, the more I realized I was falling for him, and I hated myself for it. I hated myself for wanting someone else when I had you." I didn't know what to say. My thoughts were racing, trying to process everything. Michael, a client. How long had this been going on? How long had she been hiding this from me, pretending that everything was fine? I forced myself to speak, my voice low and steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "How long, Lydia? How long has this been happening behind my back?" She bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes. "It started a few months ago. I didn't want to tell you because I knew how much it would hurt you. I tried to stop it, I really did. But I couldn't. I felt like I had been sucker punched. A few months? That's how long she had been seeing him? How long had I been living in the dark, believing everything was normal, when behind my back, she was getting closer to someone else? The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. "I don't know what to say," Lydia said, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Nathan. I never meant for this to happen." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I couldn't sit there anymore, couldn't listen to her apologies, couldn't look at her anymore. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Lydia. You've been lying to me for months. You've been sneaking around, and I didn't even see it." She stood up too, reaching out toward me. "Please, Nathan, don't leave. I know I messed up. I've been an idiot. But I love you. I didn't want to hurt you. Love me." I cut her off, the words slipping out before I could stop them. How can you love me if you've been with him? How could you betray me like this, and then tell me you love me? Lydia took a step back, the tears now streaming down her face. I was confused. I didn't know what I was doing. I never meant for it to go this far. I still love you, Nathan. I do. I looked at her, but it felt like I was seeing her for the first time. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with everything, now felt like a stranger. I had always thought we were solid, that we could overcome anything. But now I wasn't so sure. I don't know what to believe anymore, Lydia, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can even trust you anymore. She shook her head desperately. You have to believe me. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you. Please, just let me fix this. Let me show you that I can change. I felt the weight of her words, but they felt hollow. The damage had already been done. The trust was broken, and no amount of pleading was going to fix it. I turned away from her, pacing around the room. My mind was a chaotic blur, trying to make sense of everything. How could I go back to the way things were? How could I ever look at her the same way after this? The silence between us stretched out, unbearable. Lydia's cries filled the room, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. How could I? After what felt like an eternity, I finally spoke, my voice firm despite the pain in my chest. I don't know if we can fix this, Lydia. I don't know if I can forgive you. Her sobs grew louder, and I felt a pang of guilt. But I pushed it down. I wasn't sure what I was feeling anymore. Anger, betrayal, confusion. I wasn't sure if I was even capable of forgiveness. I'm going to need some time to think, I said, turning toward the door. I need space too. I walked out of the apartment, leaving her behind, not knowing what would come next. The air felt colder now, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking away from something irreversible. The truth was out, but it didn't feel like relief. It felt like the beginning of something much darker. The beginning of a road I wasn't sure I wanted to travel. I didn't know where I was going when I left the apartment. My feet moved, but my mind was 1,000 miles away, lost in a storm of confusion and betrayal. I had to get away from Lydia, from the lies, from the crushing weight of the past few hours. But where would I go? What was I supposed to do now? The streets outside were quieter than usual. It was late, and most people were tucked away in their homes. It felt like the world was moving on without me, as if I was stuck in some limbo, unable to catch up. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out, hoping to see something that could make sense of everything. But it was Lydia. Please, Nathan, let's talk. I can't lose you. I love you. Let me fix this. The words felt like a slap in the face. How could she possibly think she could fix this? Could I even look at her the same way after everything she had confessed? I had trusted her. I had given her everything, and now I was left wondering if that had ever meant anything to her. I shoved the phone back into my pocket and kept walking, my footsteps echoing through the empty streets. My thoughts kept swirling, pulling me in different directions. Part of me wanted to go back to her, to listen to her explanations, to give her a chance to make things right. But another part of me, the part that felt betrayed, screamed at me to walk away, to never look back. I didn't want to make a decision in the heat of the moment. I had to clear my head. I had to think. So I kept walking. The cool night air felt like a bomb against the fire in my chest, but it didn't help to calm the storm inside me. Hours passed before I found myself at a small park by the river. I sat down on one of the benches, the silence around me pressing in. I didn't know how long I had been there, but I was numb to everything around me. My phone had buzzed several times since I left, but I couldn't bring myself to look at her messages. What was there to say? What could she say that would make everything better? She had lied to me, betrayed me, and now she wanted me to just forgive her? I didn't even know if I could forgive myself for not seeing the signs earlier. I pulled out my phone again, this time checking the missed calls. The last one was from Lydia, of course. She had tried reaching me several times, and I could feel the desperation in each missed call. But all I could think about was the fact that I had been blind to what was happening right under my nose. How had I missed it? How had I let her get so far away from me without realizing? Then, I saw a name that made my blood run cold. Michael. There was a text from him, sent just a few minutes ago. I miss you. Can't wait to see you again. Let's make this work. I felt sick to my stomach. The truth was staring me in the face, and I couldn't deny it any longer. Lydia wasn't just confused. She wasn't just distant like Kate had said. She was in love with someone else. She was seeing him, and it had gone far beyond just a fling. She had crossed a line, and she had done it in the worst way possible. I stood up from the bench, the anger bubbling up inside me again. This time, it wasn't just sadness. This time, it was pure rage. I had been made a fool of. All the years we had spent together, all the promises we had made to each other, and for what? So she could betray me with some guy she met at work? I walked back to the apartment, my steps quickening with every passing second. My mind was made up. I wasn't going to let this slide. I wasn't going to let her off the hook just because she was sorry. The damage was done, and there was no going back. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let her just waltz back into my life without facing the consequences. By the time I reached the apartment, I was nearly shaking with fury. I had never felt this angry in my life, and I didn't know if I was more upset with her, with myself, or with the situation as a whole. I reached for the door handle and paused, taking one last breath before I pushed it open. Lydia was sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. She looked up when she heard the door, and for a moment, there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. But when she saw the look on my face, that hope vanished, replaced by fear. I thought you'd come back, she said quietly, her voice shaking. Nathan, please, we need to talk. I know I've messed up, but I swear, I never meant to hurt you. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, my heart racing, trying to keep my emotions in check. I couldn't let her see how much she had destroyed me. I couldn't let her see how vulnerable I was. I finally spoke, my voice cold and steady. You've done more than hurt me, Lydia. You've lied to me. You've betrayed me. And I don't think there's anything you can say that will make this right. Her face crumpled, and she stood up, taking a step toward me. Please, Nathan. I made a mistake. It was a moment of weakness, but I love you. I do. I never meant to hurt you like this. I shook my head, stepping back. Love me? How can you love me if you've been with him? How can you stand there and say that after everything you've done? Lydia reached out, but I took another step back, my hands trembling. Please, Nathan, don't do this. Don't walk away from me. But I was already walking away. I couldn't stand to hear it anymore. The lies, the excuses, it was too much. It wasn't just the affair. It was everything. The broken trust. The lies. The person I thought I knew, who had turned out to be someone else entirely. I opened the door, and without another word, I walked out, leaving Lydia behind, broken, as she had left me. The air outside was cold, and the weight of the night hit me like a ton of bricks. I had no idea where I was going, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay there. Not anymore. The next step was clear. I needed to figure out what came next. Could I move on from this? Or was this the end? The hardest part was yet to come, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was Lydia, her face, the guilt, the lies, the betrayal. I tossed and turned in bed, my mind racing through the conversations, the moments, the questions I should have asked. But it was too late for that now. Too late for second chances. By morning, I felt like a shell of the person I was just days ago. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was everything. The fact that I had been blind to it. The way Lydia had hidden it from me. The way she thought she could get away with it. I had always prided myself on being a reasonable guy, someone who could handle anything that came my way. But this was different. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, wondering if I should reach out to her again. But I knew better. Every time I thought about calling her, about trying to fix it, my anger flared up again. It wasn't about saving our marriage anymore. It was about respect. About not letting her think that everything was fine, just because she said sorry. I deserved more than that. I went into the bathroom, splashed some cold water on my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. The man looking back at me wasn't the same person I had been just a week ago. I had been living a lie. I had been trusting someone who was living two lives, one with me and one with him. Michael. I had to face the truth now, no matter how much it hurt. I grabbed my jacket and headed out the door. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew I couldn't stay in that apartment. Not today. I walked aimlessly through the city, the cool breeze stinging my face, as if the world itself was reminding me that everything had changed. That Lydia had changed. I ended up at a small cafe on the corner, a place I used to visit when I wanted to get away from the noise. I ordered a coffee, but the bitterness of it didn't compare to the bitterness inside me. As I sat there, lost in my thoughts, I couldn't help but wonder how long this had been going on. How long had Lydia been hiding her feelings from Michael? How many times had she lied to me, pretending everything was fine when all along she was building a life with someone else? I pulled out my phone again and stared at the text messages from her. They were all empty words, apologies, and pleas for forgiveness. But how could I forgive her? How could I go back to the way things were when she had shattered everything we built together? As I scrolled through her messages, something caught my eye, a text from Michael. It was sent just an hour ago. I miss you. Can't wait to see you again. I think about you all the time. My stomach turned. It was the confirmation I needed. It wasn't just an affair, it was an emotional betrayal. Lydia had let herself fall for him, and she had done it while lying to me, while pretending everything was fine. And now, she was trying to come back, to make it all right. But I knew, deep down, it couldn't be fixed. It couldn't go back to what it was. It was too far gone. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know how to fix this, or even if I wanted to. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living in this limbo, wondering what Lydia was doing behind my back. I had to make a choice. I decided to go back to the apartment. I needed to see her, to confront her one last time. I didn't know if I was ready for it, but I knew I couldn't run from this forever. It was time to face the music. When I arrived, the door was cracked open, as if she had been waiting for me. My heart raced, but I steeled myself for what was to come. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me with her tears or her apologies. I had to be strong. I knocked once, and when there was no answer, I pushed the door open. Lydia was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were red from crying. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "Lydia," I said, my voice firm, "we need to talk." She flinched, like she had been waiting for this moment, but she didn't say anything at first. She just nodded and wiped her eyes. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to fix what I've done." I stood there, staring at her, trying to process everything I was feeling. Anger, sadness, disappointment. I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive her, but I knew I had to hear her out, if only to understand why. "Why?" I asked, the word barely escaping my lips. "Why did you do it? Why him?" Lydia's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had once loved. But it didn't last long. She looked away again, her hands trembling in her lap. "I don't know, Nathan," she said softly. "I got lost. I was unhappy, and he made me feel things I hadn't felt in a long time. I'm not proud of what I did, but I never wanted to hurt you." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her how much she had hurt me, how much I felt betrayed, how I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. But I didn't. I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air between us. "I've been selfish," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I've ruined everything, and I can't expect you to forgive me. But I love you, Nathan. I always have." I shook my head. "I don't know if I can believe that anymore, Lydia. I don't know if I can trust you. You've broken me. You've broken us." She stood up then, her hands reaching out for me, but I stepped back, holding up my hand to stop her. "I can't fix this," I said, the words painful to say. "I don't know if I even want to try anymore." The silence between us was deafening. Lydia's face crumpled, and for the first time in a long time, I saw her truly broken. But as much as I wanted to comfort her, to make things right, I knew I couldn't. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. I walked out of the apartment, the door closing softly behind me, and I didn't look back. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I couldn't stay in this broken relationship. It was time for both of us to move on. The hardest part wasn't walking away. It was knowing that, no matter how much I loved her, I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her betrayal. The trust was gone, and no matter how much she apologized, nothing would ever be the same again. And in that moment, as I stepped into the unknown, I realized that sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever have to do is let go. The days that followed felt like a blur. Everything in my life had been turned upside down, and I was just trying to hold on to whatever bits of reality I could. I didn't know what I was doing, where I was going, or what I was supposed to feel. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living in this state of uncertainty, with Lydia's betrayal hanging over my head like a cloud. The apartment felt emptier than it ever had before. I moved around, going through the motions, eating, sleeping, working, but nothing felt right. I'd wake up in the mornings with this tightness in my chest, this gnawing feeling that wouldn't go away. No matter how much I tried to focus on anything else, All I could think about was Lydia and the mess she'd made of our lives. There were moments when I wondered if I was being too harsh. Maybe it wasn't all her fault. Maybe I had missed something, too. But every time I thought about forgiving her, I came back to the same realization. She had betrayed me. She had gone behind my back. She had lied. And she had chosen him over me. And that, no matter how much she cried or apologized, could never be erased. I tried to get out of the apartment as much as I could, mostly just walking aimlessly through the city, trying to clear my head. But it was impossible to escape the constant stream of thoughts that haunted me. What would I do now? Could I ever trust again? Would I ever be able to love someone the same way after this? Could I ever look at Lydia the same way? A week passed, and then another. I barely heard from her. She called once, left a few messages, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up the phone. The thought of hearing her voice again made my skin crawl. Every message from her felt like another attempt at manipulation, another attempt to make me feel guilty for not forgiving her. I went through every possible scenario in my mind. I imagined confronting Michael, telling him what he had done to my life, to my marriage. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't his fault. Lydia was the one who had made the choice to step outside of our relationship. She was the one who had decided that I wasn't enough for her anymore. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the loss of trust, the loss of the person I thought I knew. The betrayal was too deep, too personal. Every time I tried to move forward, the weight of it would pull me back. I realized I was stuck, trapped in this emotional limbo, not knowing how to move on or what to do next. One afternoon, after another sleepless night, I decided to take the plunge. I had been avoiding her for long enough. I had to confront Lydia, to hear her out one last time. Not for closure, not for reconciliation, but because I couldn't keep running away from the truth. I couldn't keep hiding from the reality of what had happened between us. I walked back to our apartment. I didn't know what I was going to say or what she was going to say, but I knew it was time to face it. Time to stop pretending like everything was fine. Time to stop pretending that I could live with this. I had to do this, for my own sanity, for my own peace of mind. When I got to the door, I hesitated. My hand hovered over the doorknob, and for a moment, I thought about turning back. But I didn't. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Lydia was sitting on the couch, just like the last time I saw her. Her eyes were red, and her face was a mixture of guilt and fear. But there was something else there too, something I hadn't seen before, something that looked like desperation. "Nathan," she said softly, looking up at me as I walked in. "I didn't think you'd come back. I didn't think you'd give me another chance. I know I don't deserve it, but please, please just hear me out." I closed the door behind me and stood there for a moment, not knowing what to say. I had so many questions, so many things I wanted to ask, but it all came down to one thing. Could I ever trust her again? Could I ever look at her the same way after everything that had happened? "I don't know why I'm here, Lydia," I finally said, my voice low. "But I need to hear you say it. I need to hear you explain what happened. I need to know why." Lydia looked at me with tears in her eyes, and for a moment, she seemed like the woman I once knew, the woman I had fallen in love with. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She just looked at me, her face twisted with regret. "I don't have an explanation," she whispered. "I don't have a good enough reason for what I did. I was lost. I was selfish. And I don't expect you to forgive me, Nathan. I don't deserve your forgiveness." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She was right. She didn't deserve forgiveness. Not after what she had done. But as much as I wanted to hate her, as much as I wanted to walk out and never look back, a part of me still wanted to believe in the person I had loved, the person I had married. I didn't say anything for a long time. I just stood there, my mind racing. I had to make a decision. And I knew, deep down, that this decision would change everything. Finally, I spoke, my voice quieter than before. "I can't go back to the way things were, Lydia. I can't pretend like this didn't happen. The trust is gone, and I don't think I can ever get it back." She nodded, as if she had been expecting that. But her face crumpled as if the weight of my words had shattered her completely. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough." I turned and walked out of the apartment, closing the door behind me. It felt final. The last door had closed, and for the first time in days, I felt a strange sense of peace. It wasn't closure. I hadn't forgiven her. But I knew, in that moment, that I was finally free. I didn't look back as I walked away from the apartment. Each step felt heavier than the last, but at the same time, It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had no idea what the future would hold, but for the first time in what felt like ages, I wasn't dragging around the burden of lies and broken trust. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I moved through my routine like a zombie, but there was something different about the air around me. The city felt brighter somehow, like I was seeing it with new eyes. I spent my evenings at the gym, trying to let go of the tension that had built up over months of uncertainty. I reached out to friends I hadn't spoken to in ages. I laughed, I hung out, and for the first time, I began to feel like myself again. It wasn't easy. I still had moments of doubt, moments where I'd catch myself wondering if I had made the right choice. Would I always feel like this? Would I ever truly be able to trust again? But then I remembered the way Lydia had looked at me when I walked out that door, her eyes filled with guilt and regret. It wasn't the woman I had married, but I had to accept that sometimes people change, and sometimes they make mistakes they can't take back. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I was ready to forgive myself. A few weeks passed, and I found myself feeling lighter, even happier. The anger had faded, and though the scars of betrayal would take time to heal, I was starting to feel hopeful again. I spent more time with myself, doing things I enjoyed, rediscovering hobbies I had put on hold. I even started dating again. Nothing serious, just casual, but it felt good to be out there, to be myself again. One day, out of the blue, I received a message from Lydia. My heart skipped a beat, but I wasn't sure what to expect. I debated for a long time whether I should open it, but eventually, I did. The message was simple. I don't know if we'll ever be able to fix what's broken, but I just wanted to say thank you. You taught me a lot about what love really means. I'll always care for you, Nathan. I hope one day, you'll find happiness, the kind you deserve. I stared at the screen for a long time, letting the words sink in. It wasn't an apology, not really. But it was something else, an acknowledgement that we both had to move on, that we both had lessons to learn, and that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for a future where we could both heal. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I closed the message and set my phone down, looking out the window. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden light across the city. For the first time in a long while, I smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had learned how to let go of the things I couldn't control. In that moment, I realized something important. Life doesn't always go the way you expect. People hurt you, betray you, and sometimes, you're left picking up the pieces of a life you thought was secure. But with time, you can rebuild. And when you do, you'll find that the cracks left behind only make you stronger. I didn't know what the future held, but I was no longer afraid of it. I was ready to embrace it, to step into it with open arms. Because even in the face of betrayal, I had come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and more aware of what truly mattered. As the last rays of the setting sun dipped below the horizon, I knew one thing for sure. I was going to be okay.